Have you ever thought about the type of clutter that you have in your life? So, we're reading the Happiness Project this month for book club, and in this particular section, she started this happiness project for 12 months, and she starts in the month of January. And in January, she's working on boosting her energy, and one of the things that she's working on is reducing clutter in her home. So, she talks about what her 10th commandment of this whole this whole happiness project is, and it's do what ought to be done. And she said that it was a commandment that was distilled into one principle a lot of different strands of advice from her mother had given to her over the years. Her mom had always said, like, just do the thing that needs to be done. Just make a list, do a little bit each day, and stay calm. And she talks then about how she used this for every string of things in her life, taking the bar exam, writing thank you notes, having a baby, getting carpets cleaned, the whole nine. But then she goes on to evaluating her apartment when it's actually time to get down to cleaning, and she finds that she describes clutter into a few distinct categories. So first was nostalgic clutter, made up of relics I clung to from my earlier life. I made a mental note that I didn't need to keep the huge box of materials I used for the business and regulation of television seminar that I taught years ago, y'all. Second was self-righteous conservation clutter, made up of things that I kept because they were useful, even though they're useless to me. Why was I storing 23 glass florist shop vases? And I know everybody watching this video has something that you're holding on to just because it's useful, but you're actually not using it. So just because you can use something, if you're not using it, you should probably get rid of it. I'm just saying. One kind of clutter I saw in other people's homes but didn't suffer from myself was bargain clutter, which results from buying unnecessary things because they're on sale. She says that she didn't suffer from that, but she did suffer from something relatable, freebie clutter, the clutter of gifts, hand-me-downs, and giveaways that you just don't use. Then she talks about how recently her mother-in-law had offered her something, and she initially said yes, just to be nice, just to be polite. But then she later had to tell her, like, no, I don't have space for that, and I really don't need it. And she was just happy that she ended up making that call and saying, no, we don't need it, because then it would have just contributed to more clutter. And then the next one is crutch clutter. These things I used, but I knew I shouldn't. My horrible green sweatshirt bought secondhand more than 10 years ago. My 8-year-old underwear with holes and frayed edges. Because, girl, get some new underwear. This kind of clutter drove my mother crazy. Why do you want to wear that? She would say. She always looks fabulous, while I found it difficult not to wear shapeless yoga pants and ratty t-shirts day after day. Then she talks about aspirational clutter. Things that I owned, but only aspire to use. And I call this your ideal self. The glue gun I never mastered. Mysteriously specific silver serving pieces untouched since our wedding. My beige pumps and super high heels. The flip side of aspirational clutter is outgrown clutter. I discovered a big pile of plastic photo boxes piled in a drawer. I used them for years, but even though I like the proper picture frames now, I'd held on to the plastic versions. This kind of clutter that I found most disagreeable with was buyer's remorse clutter, and I feel like y'all probably know this one. She says, when rather than admit that I made a bad purchase, I hung on to things until somehow I felt they'd been used up by sitting in a closet or on a shelf. The canvas bag that I used only once since I bought it 2 years ago. Those impractical white pants. So the things that you buy, you realize I'm not going to use it, but then you feel bad that you spent your money on it and you're not going to use it. So then you hold on to it until like a certain amount of time has passed, and now it's like, well, I haven't used it, but I had it long enough that I can go ahead and get rid of it. These are really good. So then she says that she sized up the situation and she decided to get to work. And now she's actually ready to go through and to unpack all of these things. This is a really good book. I've read it before. We're reading it in book club now. It is broken down into like a 12-month cycle. We are not going to take 12 months to read it. But I like the way that she goes through it in real time and she gives practical advice. And she's just reflecting on it in a way that really makes you think. So I don't know who need to hear this, but maybe it's time to start decluttering your house, friend. Maybe you need to go and look through some of these categories. Like, are you holding on to some self-righteous clutter? Are you holding on to some bargaining clutter? Are you holding on to some freebie clutter, some stuff that you got for free, but you just can't pry your fingers off of it, some buyer's remorse clutter? I don't know what kind of clutter you're holding on to, but it's time to let it go, friend. Let it go.